Hello again, friends, and welcome to another segment of Doc G's Wine and Spirits Review. What I'd like to share with you tonight is something that I've done in the past with you. I'd like to feature a red grape for you tonight, and tonight's feature is going to be all about Malbec. And I can't wait to tell you some facts about this wine, share a couple examples with you, and tell you how much I really do love this great red grape. So before we start, a little sip of some Malbec to wet the whistle, and let's begin. So let's talk about some generic facts about Malbec as a grape. So the grape itself originated in France, and it started there and was raised, and it was used as kind of a bulk wine in its heyday, and then it kind of fell out of favor. But it is mainly grown in the Cahors region, which is in the southwest part of France. So that is the Malbec as we know it from France. It also goes, interestingly enough, by some other grape names. There's another name for the grape called Cot, C-O-T, and it is also known as Auxerrois. And that's the way it's known in France. But for the average person like you and me, when we're looking for a wine, we don't usually ask, I think I'm going to buy me a bottle of Auxerrois. Sorry, you're going to go look for a Malbec, which is what the grape is. So the actual word, Malbec, as it's known now, originated from a little bit of history. Back in the 50s, Malbec was very plentiful. It wasn't considered the best grape in the world by the French wine growers. And mal, or mal, means bad in French. And bec is an allusion to the mouth, or bouche. So Malbec basically meant either like bad breath or bad mouth. That was basically a derogatory term for the wine because it kind of fell out of favor with French winemakers in the 1950s. But rest assured, Malbec is anything but bad. It should be called Bon Bec, but more about that later. So the grape fell out of favor, made its way to its current, I don't want to say homeland, but its current place where it's just flourishing, and it has been flourishing for years, and that is Argentina. And it's known as Malbec there now. It's grown in the Andes pretty much. If you're familiar with South American geography, Chile is on the Pacific, Argentina is on the Atlantic, and the continent comes to a point. The wine regions where Malbec is grown kind of border Chile, and they're in the Andes Mountains, and Malbec does very well at higher elevations, 3,000 feet and higher, which helps to make the grape what it is today in Argentina. So if you're going to look at Malbec as something that you would, I'm hoping that this is not the first time that all of you have ever heard of Malbec. It's been a grape that's been in my collection for a long time, one that I really love to enjoy. I'm going to sample a few here for you now, which I'm doing right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. So let's talk about, if you remember, just tie in to our last presentation on decanting, these reds, Malbecs, you're probably looking at a 30-minute minimum to decant them using a decanter, or maybe if you just want to have a glass, pour it into the glass and get some surface oxygen on it to aerate the wine and smooth it out just a little bit. So let's talk about the flavor profile of the both of the Malbecs that I have here. One of them, in this glass, I have a Malbec from Argentina, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. And in this glass, I have a Malbec from Cahors, and one that is from the southwest of France. They really could be, if you did a blind taste testing, completely different wines, and that has all to do with the climate, the soil, and the way the wines are actually put together. So let's talk about the one from France first. I'm going to switch glasses here. This one from France has a much different nose, and I'll get to that in a minute. Then it's a little bit more earthy. This is the one from France. I'll read from the label. It's Clos La Coutal 2017. So, whoops, ring-a-ling. So it's been in the bottle a while, and it is a little bit different than the one that I started out sipping with you to start our spot here tonight. So let me take a little bit of time here. Get our nose in the glass. I'm getting some dark fruit. A little bit of oak, not much. It's got a little bit of grip, a little bit of tannin, but the fruit is fantastic. It's got a little bit of, the flavor profile for these is a little bit of cherry. You might get a little bit of coffee, maybe a little bit of leather, depending on what your palate picks up. Let me say it another way. This is pretty good. And if you look, it's a nice dark inky color. Cahors, or the Malbec from France, was known as the black wine of France. So this is a very dark and inky wine. A little bit of acid on this too for a red wine. And that's typical of the French style Malbec that, to be honest with you, you're going to have to go in and look for it when you, wherever it is you shop for wine. This one actually says Malbec on the bottle, but it is from Cahors, which is in the Cahors, which is in the southwest part of France. And I'll post a little bit about, after we're done here, to give you some reading materials if you're interested in diving into Malbec from an intellectual standpoint. I just prefer to drink it, but honestly, I do read about it. You know that, and I hope you do a little bit of reading yourself. So let's put that one aside. I'm having trouble with the tingling here tonight. And let's go to the one from Argentina. So here's our Cahors. Here is our wine from Argentina. And let me talk about the wine first, and then I'm going to taste it for you. This one you would have to go on to Total Wine, you'd have to go on to Wine Access and get it. This was a special order. This is from a winery, Marcelo Pelleriti. And it is from Valle de Uco, and that's one of the AVAs in Mendoza, Argentina. Mendoza is probably in the middle of the western part of Argentina as it borders Chile in the foothills of the Andes Mountains. It's 100% Malbec, aged 12 months in French oak. And as they tell you on the bottle, I just say read the bottle. It's full-bodied, well-structured with a long finish. It does say ready to drink now, and this is a 2018. But as with many red wines, they're saying you could let this one lie down for 7 to 10 years. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be too old. So we're going to drink it tonight. We're going to share it together. So this wine also has the distinction of getting a 95-point review from James Suckling, who is actually a very renowned wine critic and wine reviewer. So that is a pretty important designation for this wine. So instead of talking about it, let's taste it. So you can see if you compare the two, actually the one from Argentina, believe it or not, is even a little bit darker. So let's take this one. Much more fruity. It's not as austere. When I say austere, this one's a little more tight. Could probably benefit from a little bit more time in a decanter. This one is already, it's a fruit bomb. It's fantastic. Plum, blackberry. One of the characteristics you'll get on Malbecs is a little bit of maybe cocoa. It all depends on your palate. I try to be honest with you and tell you what I'm experiencing. I don't rely on what they tell me. If they say it tastes like blackberry and I think it doesn't, I'll let you know. But so far, oh my God, that is so smooth. Very little tannin. One of the distinctions that you'll find with the old world wines that have come to the new world is that the New World wines tend to be a little bit more fruity, a little less tannic. I'm not really sure why that is. Some of it has to do with the way it's cultivated and the kind of soil that it's in. And the grape changes a little bit, even though it's technically the same grape. We talked about that analogy with apples. Apples from one part of the country, even though they're, Macintosh, don't taste like a Macintosh exactly from another part of the country. So be it. So this one, both, by the way, these are fantastic examples of this wonderful dark red grape. So this Malbec is one that is emblematic of what you would find in Mendoza in Argentina. Argentina is by far the largest producer of Malbec on the planet as we speak. I mean, if you go to Total Wine, if you go to the Pennsylvania wine and spirit shops, I know for fact for Total Wine, there's a whole row. It's just all Malbec. And I don't really want to recommend one over another. I would tell you this, if you're interested in a Malbec, just pick one out. One of the things that I found in my research, interestingly enough, is that the Malbec market has become flooded. It's a very prolific grape due to the way it's been exploding in Argentina over the last 2 decades. So it used to be you could get a good Malbec, and good, again, is relative. I'm talking to you from my point of view. $10 to $15. Probably now they're saying you need to push that up to $20, and not because of inflation or anything. It's just because the market is flooded so much with a lot of Malbec. You can buy an Alamos Malbec. I'm sure you've seen it in the PA wine and spirit shops for under $10. It's not the greatest Malbec, but you know what? It's not bad. So you go by your budget. I can tell you, Doc G, if you gave me a bottle of Alamos Malbec, I'm going to drink it. But if I'm going to give you a bottle of Malbec, I'm probably going to get you something up in the $15 to $20 range to show you how much different, even though you pay twice as much from that $10 bottle of Malbec to the $20 bottle, you won't be sorry. Because now you can get Malbecs that get wacky. They get up in the $40, $50 range. I don't do that. I've told you all along. I drink too much wine, buy too much wine to be popping $50 on a bottle of Malbec. I'm not going to do it. But I'll do this. I think I got these for somewhere around 20 when you buy a case. My friends split some with me. And they're special wines. Malbec, in spite of that old French thing about bad mouth, this is not a bad wine. It is actually fantastic. So these Malbecs are worth your time, worth your exploration. You figure out in your budget how you want to deal with how much you might want to spend on a Malbec. But I can tell you, I'm having a good time right here, right now with this wine. And if I had to give you a preference, I would take South America over France, with these two especially. I'm not saying the ones from France aren't good. This is just smooth. There's very little tannin. It's just a big fruit bomb. It would just, you know me, what am I going to say? 3, 2, 1. It's great, just with a glass. So, you don't even, you know what, a nice piece of chocolate would go real good here right now. But I don't have that on hand. So I'm going to tell you some things that would go well with some of these wines in terms of food pairings. So Malbec, believe it or not, doesn't have the big boldness that a cab does. So in cabs, they say go with, big meats and things like that. All the food recommendations that I've seen for Malbec, and I can verify this from my own experience, a nice lean cut of a red meat goes very well with a Malbec. My wife and I love to have grilled tenderloins. They're very low in fat. You need like a 4 or 5 ounce portion. nothing more fantastic than to wash that down with one of these Malbecs. It doesn't have to be this one. It could be any Malbec from Mendoza. You can get Malbec in California as well. Francis Ford Coppola, whose vineyard we visited when I went to Sonoma way back 13 years ago already, does a great Malbec as well. Robert Mondavi does a Malbec. So you can get good Malbec in California as well. You're not going to find a lot of it on the shelves because Argentina just dominates the shelf space with good Malbecs. But there's no reason for you not to find a good Malbec. You can just close your eyes and pick one off the shelf, and you're going to find a good Malbec. I've never had a bad one. I've just had some that are better. So back to the food pairings, it goes really well with lean meat, lean red meat, nice piece of lean sirloin, beautiful with bison. My wife and I love bison. We love to make bison meatloaf, bison burgers. I've even had bison steaks. Very lean, very low in fat. It goes well with duck. It goes well with dark turkey. It goes well with, to be quite honest with you, if you want to just have a burger, it doesn't have to be lean. Put yourself together a burger with some cheese on it and have a Malbec and wash it down. Boom! It'll be fantastic. So it also goes well with cheeses. Any of your, richer cheeses. Anything with goat's milk, cow's milk, cheddar cheeses. It would go well with Manchego cheese from Spain, which I love. It would go well with some Gouda, some Gruyere. It's a really great red wine for pairing with things like that. It'd go well with mushrooms. My wife and I make this mushroom fontina cheese fungi pizza. It would go fantastically with that because it pairs well. It has a little bit of earthiness to it, especially the one from France. It's a little bit more earthy, but the one from Argentina would knock that out of the park, I'm telling you. So my recommendation to you is based on everything I'm sharing with you tonight. Go find yourself a Malbec if you haven't already. And if you have, find another one because it is a wine worth your time. And it is one that I love. I'm sure if you've had it or haven't had it yet, you're going to love it. So my suggestion is to go find one. And my recommendation, I'm not going to recommend this Marcello Pelleriti or this one, which I actually got as a gift. So I don't really know where it came from. I'm guessing it came from PA. It doesn't matter. My recommendation is this. Set aside $15 to $20. Go to your favorite wine and spirit shop, whether it be in Pennsylvania, whether it be at Total Wine, and go search for Malbec. Make it a library visit, like you're doing some research. And bring that bottle home, and you drink it right away, or save it for the time that you're going to have a burger, some red meat, some dark meat turkey, some chicken legs would go well with it as well. Maybe some cheese and crackers, some big, powerful, nice, rich cheese. Something, maybe, you know what? Go buy a mushroom pizza. It doesn't have to be the one we make. And wash it down with a Malbec. You won't be sorry. Doc G's word. And I've never steered you wrong. So Malbec could be your next big find if you haven't tried it yet. So, one more sip of this before we close out. Because I want to close out. Oh, one other fact that I forgot to mention is that Malbec is also used. There are 5 grapes that, if you remember when I did this spot on Bordeaux, 5 grapes that the Bordeaux winemakers allow to go into their Bordeaux blends. Because all Bordeaux grapes, all Bordeaux reds are blends. They have Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cab Franc, Malbec, Petit Verdot, and Cab Franc. So those are the 5. Now you don't see a lot of red Bordeaux's with Malbec in it, but it is still, in spite of their dissing it with this Malbec, Malbouche criticism, they still will use it. in Bordeaux blends which sell for thousands of dollars. Think about that. It's the French. Je ne sais pas. But before we leave, as you know, we've done segments in the past, and we've always talked about rosés. So if you've been listening to me, you know that any red wine can be produced in a rosé form. Malbec is no different. So surprise, surprise, I have for you to close out our show a rosé of Malbec from the Mendoza region. This one cost me on sale $9 a bottle in PA Wine and Spirits, which is good for, rosés. You don't really have to knock yourself out of the bank. So honestly, this is like a reveal here. I have never had this wine before. I went out specifically and bought it for this segment. So Doc G is going to crack this one open now. I've been chilling it for the last 2 hours, and I'm going to pour it in the glass here, one of my special glasses from a local winery. Love that sound. This one is called, well, not much on the nose. This is the 2019 Rosé of Malbec from the same place that the Marcelo Pelleriti is from, the Valle de Uco in Mendoza. So let's see what the bottle says, and then I'm going to sip it and see if they're telling the truth. It says the Crios Rosé of Malbec is sourced from the highest Andean vineyards, about 3,700 feet. It is fresh, dry, and delicate with aromas and flavors of strawberry and gooseberry, leading to a balanced palate and crisp finish. Let's see if that's true. Not getting the gooseberry, but what a delicate, nice summer sipper. Oh my. Mon Dieu. This is a great rosé. Drink it cold. You see my bottle. It's sweating. Crios. PA Wine and Spirits. On sale now. $8.99 a bottle. So, what a pleasant wine. I've had rosés twice that aren't as good as this. So, and better yet, screw cap. Crios Malbec. It is, you ready for this? It is a 14.5 rosé. So this is a big ass rosé. It's going to give you a little bit of a buzz. But besides the buzz, it's going to please your palate and it's going to please your pocketbook because it's only $9 a bottle right now. I have no stock in this company. But my point is, remember what I said about red wines. Any one of them has the potential to be made into a rosé. So I felt it was only appropriate, if I'm going to cover Malbec with you tonight, that we talk about the potential. Because if they made bad rosés, some rosés that, like, there's rosé of Merlot, not so much. I don't really care for it. I've even had rosés of Cabernet Sauvignon. Nah, not for me. But there are certain wines, and Malbec is now going to be in my book, of wines that go really well when they're made in the rosé style. Pinot Noir being one, Mourvedre being one, Syrah rosés are good, Tempranillo rosés are good, Grenache rosés are fantastic, and now you can add Malbec rosés to the list. If you can find a Malbec rosé and it's not Crios, I highly recommend that you try it. So, I think that covers everything. It's been great to see you again. Glad you could join me again here in the Auto Art Cellar. And until our next time, get ready to enjoy spring. It's just around the corner. Stay safe and get yourself some Malbec. Until our next time, cheers.